Hello, all you people out there in internet land. This is Fat and Angry. He's fat, I'm angry. How you doing today, Fats?
Mostly fat.
And I'm mostly angry. Today we're going to talk about more career stories. Yes, because shit has been shitty, and now we're going to shit on the internet with our shitty shit.
Sounds good.
It's a shitty job, but someone has to do it.
Indeed. So, you mentioned that one of the particular incidents with some of the clientele when I was working at the halfway house was of interest to you.
Ah, yes, I remember you telling me a couple of stories, one of which you told me was an altercation, one of the few that actually happened there that you were not part of.
Yeah, and I was grateful for that. So, the halfway house, all the people there were there for some sort of drug-related incident. And sometimes we got some pretty serious criminals in there. I'm not going to give any names because of legal reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
But there was one time we got a member who was, I don't remember if he was a high-ranking member or like related to important people in the Texas syndicate, but basically we were given pre-warning before getting this guy that he was dangerous. And
yeah, any member of like a gang that large or at least that well known is going to be an issue one way or the other.
Yeah. And based on his facial and neck tattoos, there was no confusion about his allegiance to the Texas Syndicate.
He took one look at this guy and like his very distinguishing features and thought, I wonder what gang he might belong to, if any.
Yeah.
All these markings and whatnot, I'm sure they mean something.
You
God,
know,
I'm so unobservant.
from some sort of primitive tribe. But anyway, cell phones were considered contraband in the facility, and he managed to sneak one in, as you do. And one of the dumb young idiots, who was barely 20-something, first time in jail, decided he really missed talking to his girlfriend and stole this guy's phone.
Yeah, because that's what you want to do. You want to steal something of importance to a known gang member who has a face that essentially looks like the fucking hieroglyphics of Giza.
Yeah, and as I was explained, this guy gave him one chance to get the phone back.
I'm surprised that he gave him the chance.
And when his suggestion was not taken into consideration, he flung him to the floor and tried to rip his eyeball out.
Both or just one?
As far as I know, just one. I mean, he might have gone for both that he had.
So he could leave the other one there so he could witness his own savage mugging?
Possibly. I don't know how far he intended to go because he didn't get to finish the first eyeball. But, yeah,
No one likes a quitter, really.
Yeah, I'm just glad I wasn't there because I did not want to deal with the paperwork.
So it wasn't so much that you were scared for your own safety.
No, I didn't take the guy's phone.
You weren't scared for the client's safety?
Well, I mean, he took the guy's phone, so he kind of got what he deserved.
So your only concern was having to do, like, paperwork?
Well, over there, you had to be very careful how you handled your paperwork. If, like, any of your wording could be taken as up for interpretation, it was dismissible. And when you're dealing with something as important as a high-ranking member of the Texas Syndicate trying to rip somebody's eyeball out with his bare hands, that's not something you really want to screw up. And hey, like my job, don't want to deal with that.
It's like, oh, it's like, no, I'm not a big fan of, like, caring about my personal safety or the safeties of others. I just hate having to put pen to paper.
Yeah.
Fuck that noise. That's some Office Space type bullshit. Who needs that in their life?
Yeah, could you guys do this off property, please?
Go do it over there, or I can just watch and don't actually have to do.
I mean, if I had been there for the incident, basically what I would have done is stood back about a good 10 to 15 feet, called the police, and just watched the guy get his eyeball written out because I'm not getting in the way.
Help. Police. Murder. You're just like fucking Willy Wonka from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You're just sitting back and watching the kids try to eat each other. With the most mildest of concern dashed across your face.
Oh crap, he contaminated the chocolate.
I don't want him contaminating my chocolate. Now his whole fat ass is in there stinking it up. Now I'm going to have to burn the whole goddamn lake. What's he doing in there? Oh, the pressure's going to shoot him like a giant gun. Oh no, what are you going to do? Get some popcorn and watch this shit happen.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's going to end up, but it's going to be fun to watch. I'll tell you that shit right now.
Yeah, truth is, I rarely had to worry about my own safety there because these guys knew that anything they did to us, they weren't going to be able to get away with. And the time I spent there, and I was there for probably close to 5 years.
I thought you were there for longer. I don't know.
I might have been
It just felt longer.
Yeah, we had one client that got impatient, and he kind of pushed one of the staff members out of the way to get outside. And that was like the worst thing that happened.
Didn't you tell me you once had like a client like actually throw that question at you?
Yeah, I had a client who got curious. He said, what would happen if one of us took a swing at you? And I said, well, you're going to hit me because I'm not very fast and I probably won't be expecting it. And if that hit doesn't take me down, I'm going to grab you by the collar and I'm going to headbutt you until we both go through the wall. And he never asked me about it again.
I'm sure the look of defeat on his face is quite evident because you're a very large man.
Yeah, and
we don't call you fats for nothing. You're not just, it's like, because I've seen some people that just look unhealthy. It's like, well, you're not exactly the healthiest specimen I've ever seen walk this earth.
Hardly.
You're not what I would call a sad, defenseless fat man.
No, I can very much use gravity to my advantage if I'm, like, forced into a fight or flight situation.
I remember Sean Baby, who is one of, my God, I love his articles that he does. I think he still does them on Crack, but he does have a website that has links to a lot of his articles that he's written, past and present. And he once did an article based on, like, really shitty, like, sidekicks. And one of them was an older sidekick for Wonder Woman from back in the 40s. Where it was essentially just this fat woman that fought crime with the power of her obesity and diabetes, I think.
Yeah,
and like, I love the way he described her. He says, like, essentially, like, her only way to fight crime is to, like, you know, confront enemies is to just close her eyes and fall forward until everything in front of her is dead.
Yeah, well, when adrenaline kicks in, I actually surprise myself with how strong I can be. And I'm not going to sit there and, like, try to kung fu my way through a situation. At best, I'm going to football tackle you down and start bashing you with my sheer weight, or I am going to lift you above my head and drop you like Zangief. At which point I will then crush you while you're on the ground with either a tackle or, you know, an elbow drop.
Crush that man's head like sparrow legs between thighs.
Yeah, and then just proceed to drop the hands down on you like canned hams.
Prepare for the hamming.
Yeah.
It will be unpleasant and greasy, which you will endure or you will not. I do not care which.
Yeah, and even when my adrenaline doesn't kick in, I've got a very high pain threshold, so I can take quite a few hits. So, like Zangief, I'm going to walk through the couple of fisties you're going to get through me, so I can get close enough to pick you up and crush your head like Sparrow's egg between thighs.
Which, when I really think about it, is just a very unpleasant thing to think about at all. Yeah. So I really need to stop thinking about it right now. Well, I mean, you used to do backyard wrestling.
Yes, I injured a lot of bones that way, but we had
Learned
a
how to take your lumps, that's for sure.
yeah. There was one time we had a guy who was a cruiserweight, and he wanted to challenge me,
And
and
this was no like wrestling, dicking around. This is like
no, we actually hurt each other.
It's just like, I'm going to hurt you until you give up because fuck referees, he can't stop me. I mean, look at him. He's like half my size.
And yeah, he's spinning around and running circles around me, and at one point he jumps on my back,
Mistake.
and I grabbed him by the knees, and he's like, "Oh shit, don't fall, please don't fall," and I fell.
Oh, it's going to happen. The only thing you can do is scream.
And at that point, he tapped out before I could even finish pinning because he was done.
Oh man, what I wouldn't have given to have actually been able to see that.
um, yeah, so good times there.
Good times, good times. Back when like age like came and made everything to suck. Now, you mentioned that, and I was telling you earlier before we started recording that I had a story to tell you from work. Now, those of you who remember, I work at a funeral home. I've been working there for about 6 years now. And yeah, it's been 6 years. I just passed my 6-year marker. And in Corpus Christi, the sparkling bleached anus by the sea, as I like to call it, is not exactly the best quality of humanity we have living here. So whenever we have funeral homes, particularly on the west side of town, which those of anyone who actually lives here will know that the west side of town is not the best and brightest that this town has to offer.
The grass isn't quite as green.
There ain't no fucking grass. It is like deconsecrated ground over there. Okay? That's and we have a funeral home over there that is literally called in English Funerals of the Angels. No fucking angel would set foot over there. I guarantee you.
I was trying to be nice.
No, I mean, I actually grew up there. I was raised on the west side. I know it's not a nice place. Luckily, where I happen to live is not the worst part because it's pretty much on the edge of town. But when I was really little, I was essentially partially raised by my grandmother because my parents were both full-time workers at the time. And my grandmother's house was like smack dab in the fucking west side. So yeah, I remember taking walks around there as a kid, and you saw some shit. Luckily, I'm still here. Luckily, all the shit that I saw didn't actively come and get me, like it did so many others who are no longer with us.
You made.
What? What are you gonna say?
I forget.
Oh, you're just trying to be nice. I have lived here too long to be nice. One of the reasons why I call myself angry. Because, yeah, you get that way when you live here as long as I have. You at least had the benefit of getting to spend some time out of town when you were younger.
I don't think the Flower Bluff counts, but you know.
Well, you said you got to spend some time with your mother in Hawaii and up north.
Oh yeah, I've taken a few trips.
And like for more than like 2 days at a time.
Yeah. Guess the only benefit of a divorce. Well, that and your parents not, trying to kill each other your whole time. But,
No, they try to murder each other with just like passive aggressiveness and just weathering over time, not like direct violence.
Yeah, and you get to be the weapon that they manipulate in between,
Own you like a fine edge to
Yeah.
stab the other one in the back.
They Trojan horse you up before sending you off to the other, and the other one carefully tries to deconstruct it and rebuild their Trojan horse.
Now what I want you to do is I want you to grind your head against this whetstone to hone it to a fine edge, and I want you to run at your mother as fast as you can. You'll end up being like that one like drill-headed doll from Puppet Master.
Drill sergeant.
There you go. But back to my point. So, all that said, we've had some altercations happen at some of the funeral homes. They mostly happen on the one funeral home we have on the west side for obvious reasons. We don't get a lot of, like, upper class wasps over there on that surface. No, we get a lot of the not so classy clientele. Like the kind of clientele or the dentist offices they have over there, they have to warn you that if you're on methamphetamines, you have to tell the dentist, otherwise the dental anesthesia will kill you. Just to remind you of how classy the neighborhood you live in happens to be.
Diamonds.
So this one didn't happen on the west side. This happened on one of our other locations. And I wasn't there for this, and to be honest, I'm glad, because I don't need to be there for this kind of shit. As angry as I am, I don't need to get involved in some other family's bullshit. That's one thing that I absolutely hate, is dealing with family's bullshit at a funeral. I don't know what the fuck it is about people around here. I'm sure it's at least somewhat common everywhere, and to some extent. But around here, it's like every other fucking service. You're gonna have people that turn a funeral into a fucking pissing match, and it pisses me off to no end. It's like, let's see, Grandma's dead. What should we do? I know. Let's fist fight our cousin. That seems like a good idea.
Because, why not?
Yeah, it's as good a time as any. They're here. I'm here. Let's do this. So, yeah, we had a family that was there for a visitation. I wasn't there, so I heard about it secondhand, and I got to witness the aftermath in various ways. Now, from what I was told, fairly early on in the visitation, which is generally the day before the service, you'll have a visitation. If it's Catholic, you'll have a rosary. Some priest or deacon will come along and do the rosary, where they talk about like mysteries and Hail Marys and all that shit that I never learned in church, because my mother was too busy like pinching me until I was bleeding, because I was falling asleep listening to the sad man drone on and on for hours on end.
As you do.
Well, what the fuck do you expect taking a kid to like a place, like, at the ass crack of dawn on a Sunday morning, on the fucking weekend?
Well, I could be watching cartoons instead of this weird guy and the bloody cross.
It's like, of course you have to get there an hour and a half before the service starts so you can get the good seats. And so you're sitting there with like, well, I won't go into too much of that. That's like enough for its own fucking discussion. But that said, like, or like if it's a non-Catholic, it'll just be a visitation. Like, hey, come, like, pay your respects if you can't make it for the service in the morning, because a lot of times the services happen on weekdays where, like, some people can't go because they got work, and some people they can't get work excuses for a funeral. So apparently early on in this visitation, some members of the family decided that they were going to have themselves a fucking brawl. And to my understanding, it started off with a couple of women that started throwing blows. One of the women was what was described to me as no less than 450 pounds.
It's bigger than me.
Yeah. So imagine...
Not much, but...
You, it's like, you plus a bit more.
Maybe with a fine ham under my shoulder.
Like, and being a woman, apparently was talking shit to, like, another woman, and apparently one of them threw blows, and the larger of the two fell backwards and absolutely fucking destroyed one of our benches.
Lovely.
Because our benches are made to hold a lot of weight, but not, like, all of that weight coming down very fast, because gravity. And you'd be surprised how quickly you can reach terminal velocity from a short height if it's like, like a height or a fall that you were not prepared for.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I was doing backyard wrestling.
It's like, I thought you had to fall away before you hit terminal velocity. I fell like 4 feet.
Yeah, thank God we didn't have ring posts to jump on.
We had white chalk and rocks. That was the ring. In the grass. That's how you fucking know where to be.
Usually what we would do is we would set up our backpacks because we'd do this right after school.
Not so much backyard wrestling as it is gang initiation without the gangs.
We actually had a few matches that were broken up because people thought it was a gang fight.
Very little difference, actually. And so, and then after that, apparently several other people started, like, you know, it was like someone threw a chair. Just like suddenly, like small pockets of like fist fights started breaking out everywhere. And a lot of people were swinging, and it started off in the chapel, and it slowly worked its way out to the foyer area, and eventually made its way out into the parking lot. Now, the worst thing out of this, or at least what some people might consider to be the worst thing, is that they weren't the only funeral there that night.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah, imagine what the other family that was there in the other chapel were thinking when they see this large family suddenly get
Going to a Western ballroom brawl.
except with a lot more racial slurs thrown about.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah, I could just imagine the paperwork and the meetings that the staff had to have after that night.
no, we actually don't have those because they're so fucking common. You just have to just like go, oh well, that happened again. Moving on. What's the next service? We don't have no like fucking employee meetings or like, you know, like accident reports. You type up an email, send it to corporate, and that's pretty much the long and short of it. Because this shit happens all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it's, like I said, I don't know what it is, but people always got to turn funerals into a fucking pissing contest. It's like, oh, I'm so sad she's gone, not as sad as me. Motherfucker, what did you say? Ah, ah, ah. No one misses her more than me. And so, like, apparently, they called the police, and the police showed up pretty quickly, from what I was told. And some of the people actually tried to fight off the police. And some people got hurt pretty bad because some people couldn't make their way back to the freaking funeral the next day. And some people came back, had like hospital crutches because they had been injured in the leg so badly.
So,
And the spouse of the deceased says that this wasn't any of my family, so I'm guessing it was his wife's side of the family. His wife had passed. Thank God she wasn't alive to see that. If she wasn't already dead, she sure as hell would have been after seeing that shit break out. But, so he calls.
so let me get this straight. Family gets in a slugging match. You have to call the police to bear mace the crowd and get things under control.
Well,
and you let them come back the next day.
Like I said, this isn't uncommon. This is.
Your job fucking sucks.
Says the guy who works at Taco Bell.
If my customer gets shitty with me, I just throw a chalupa at him and he goes away.
Yeah, we're
Problem solved.
Yeah, like we're not really allowed to intervene. Even though, like, when I was there the next day for the actual service, I found that someone had apparently grabbed one of like the potted plants and like one of these like plaster stands and apparently wielded it like a mace. And we found pieces of the base all over the floor in what had to be like a 30-foot square diameter, spanning several rooms.
Dude, you guys need to buy a 12-pack of tacos before a funeral. And just if it looks like a fight's gonna break out, start passing tacos. It works at my place, maybe it'll work at yours. Hey man, no need to fight over grandma. Here's a Dorito Loco Taco. It's nacho cheese flavored. Everybody likes nacho cheese. You don't like nacho? I think we got a fiery. You want a fiery?
So like,
let's not get the bear mace in here. All right?
well, the thing is, the police didn't mace nobody. They were just trying to physically like push people apart. And believe it or not, they didn't even arrest anyone. They just let them leave. I'm like, aren't you supposed to like arrest people that like you saw throwing blows? At the very least, like arrest the people that were throwing blows at the cops because they were trying to pull them off of each other.
If you're not going to arrest them, at least handcuff them and leave them on the ground near an anthill for about an hour before
Oh, we got
letting
plenty
them.
of those out in out in the cemetery. Shit.
Well, of course, plenty of nutrients in the ground.
Well, no, I mean, like, God, you should. That is like one of our competitors has a cemetery that my grandparents on my mother's side are buried at. At the cemetery / funeral home that acts as our main hub, my grandfather on my dad's side is buried out there. We actually keep better care of our like grounds than our competitors, and because we know from experience they've damaged severely the marker stone for my grandparents over there, and they refuse to own up to it, the cocksuckers. And so I have another reason to hate on them, not just because they're our competitors and are stealing our business, but also because like we are customers of theirs and they treat us like garbage. It's like, well, you can't prove that it was us that damaged your marker stone. Motherfucker, who's bringing out an industrial grade lawnmower to mow the grounds? I don't see fucking Joe Bob bringing it out and mowing his grandfather's fucking headstone.
Yeah, you know, goths may like to hang out at the graves.
But they're not fucking lawn care workers.
Yeah, they're not there to do chores. They're there to recite bad poetry and sit on old graves.
Like, I haven't seen someone with like a bad like fucking like purple hair dye and black mascara
On a
getting
John
like
Deere.
like a fucking riding mower from Sears, okay? I don't think they're advertising to that demographic.
Oh, but could you imagine if they did?
Those would be some fucked up commercials.
Those would be great.
Bleakness, the emptiness of humanity.
John.
Lawn gnomes, take care of all of your needs with the John Deere tractor mower.
No, the goth edition.
Get your bleakness purple highlights today. Terraforminator! Your lawn will be afraid to grow! That's a bit from Romeo and Juliet I really fucking enjoyed, was Hulk Hogan doing the Terraforminator commercial. That was like the best part of that fucking movie.
The only thing I don't like about the Terraforminator commercial is it's not a real commercial.
And that came to the conclusion, like, why the fucking hell don't they get Hulk Hogan to, like, advertise more things? I would buy more shit if Hulk Hogan was yelling at me to do so.
He could reinvent the toothpaste market. I would be scared not to brush my teeth if there was a Terraforminator style toothpaste commercial.
I was like, I'm not worried about my teeth falling out. I just don't want Hulk Hogan to come out of my TV and get me. I don't care how old he is. He's a scary motherfucker.
His muscles may be loose, but they're still bigger than me.
40-inch python, brother. But anyway, back to the thing. So apparently someone had like grabbed this potted plant and wielded it like a club and busted it over someone's something, because we found bits of the base. But to try to play it off, apparently someone in the family like put the broken rounded top of this thing back on the podium we had it on, hoping we wouldn't fucking notice. As if like the thousands of shards the size of like thumbs all over the ground for like 30 feet around wouldn't be a dead giveaway that something was amiss. And also the fact that this thing that was like about 6 inches higher than it is currently, and stood up as opposed to rolling like a fucking weeble wobble now, because it's missing the fucking stable base. Now it's essentially just a rounded bowl with a fucked up janky bottom that used to like lead to the stem that like led to the actual fucking base that this thing sat on. And what was really upsetting is I didn't realize it at first until I was looking around the foyer area where like the fight broke out initially. But that bench that they broke was like the one bench that us employees used to like sit there and watch the service from the foyer, because the foyer at the back of the chapel has big fucking windows that you can look into the chapel and like see how the service is going. Because when the service ends, we have like a 15-second window to be Johnny on the spot. Otherwise, the family's going to think that, oh, they were lazy. I want my money back. Fuck you and fuck your refund. Fuck anyone who wants a fucking refund for their fucking service. We're burying them, aren't we? So fuck off and leave us alone. It's not gonna be perfect. But now we don't even have that there. The bench is fucking destroyed, so now we got nowhere to fucking sit. So I'm just gonna sit in the fucking lobby. Fuck these people. I am done being nice. After 6 years of working someplace, being nice no longer applies. It's like, how come you're not as nice as you used to be? 6 years I've been working here. That's 5 years too many. After the first year, the fucking honeymoon period's over. You don't get nice. You get what you pay for. You don't pay enough for nice. Enough is premium content. You're getting the base package. You gotta buy the DLC. We're running this shit up like EA, motherfucker.
Loot boxes.
So, like, the next day when I actually did work the service, they warn me and they say, hey, look, there might be trouble. I'm like, oh, good, because it's not early enough in the goddamn morning for me to be thinking about, like, it's like, oh, God, I didn't sleep enough, I'm tired, I'm sleepy. Now I got to worry about, like, being involved in a fucking fist fight.
Actually, I would kind of enjoy that opportunity. There's a big brawl going around, chaos ensues. This is a time for you to do something that few people ever really get to enjoy doing, and that's find a place all to yourself and start a fire. And then you can just blame it on the guests.
I do often have to carry a lighter with me. And after they broke that bench, now there's kindling about.
So yeah,
just start a fire.
Start a fire.
Thank you. I wouldn't have thought of that myself. That's a good idea. God, I hope none of my coworkers see this, because I could be arrested for conspiracy to commit arson. So, like, the next morning, like, the spouse shows up, and we got 6 members of the constabulary bomb in. 6 constables roll up in police cars. And they go into the chapel, and they're all standing in a row, just watching the proceedings. And it wasn't until after the service, when the spouse was leaving, that he mentioned that he apologized for what happened. And he says, those weren't members of my family. And I'm like, they must have been your in-laws then. Or they were friends of, like, some members of your family. They didn't just show up to crash your fucking funeral. And, like, start throwing blows because I don't know what else I'm going to do. It's a fucking Saturday.
He didn't serve good quality mints at this funeral.
Actually, no, that was, the fight would have broken out at about, I think they said it was 6:30. The actual visitation service, the prayer service they had, didn't start till 7. So it's 30 minutes before the fucking prayer service. So, like, 6:30 on a fucking Friday. Don't you have a bar that you could be, like, having, like, a chair broken over your head at right now? You gotta be starting shit at a fucking funeral home? Come on, man. As if our lives aren't shitty enough. We have to sit there and deal with, like, a bunch of crying people and, like, deal with their bullshit because they think that having a dead loved one is an excuse to be a giant walking twat. It's like, now I gotta deal with these people and, like, have to deal with like, someone possibly throwing, like, a 30-pound potted plant in a ceramic, like, bowl at my fucking face.
I mean, sure, the star of the show can't really appreciate what you're doing, but, I mean, you could at least pretend.
I'm not just going to sit there behind the lines and just start golf clapping.
Well, no, I mean, like, unless you believe in afterlife, and I'm not going to get into that conversation about myself right now, but, like, the deceased, they can't really appreciate whether you're mourning or whether you're fighting, but you could at least pretend that they can appreciate it and not start a fight.
Like, I'm gonna go over to, like, the casket, like, you know, pick him up and, like, hold him by the shoulders, like, look at her! Look at how disappointed she is with you right now. Fucking, like, you know, poke a hole in her back, slip my hand up in there, and work her like a fucking puppet. I'm very disappointed with you all right now.
Bad family. Bad. You're out of the will.
Or just, like, you know, take it a step further, just, like, close up the casket and start rolling her back to the perk room and saying, we're done here. You done fucked up. You don't get to have your prayer service no more. Go home.
No, we're throwing her in a dumpster. You don't even get ground anymore. You do not get the dirt you paid for.
If anything, it's like, I kept telling my superiors, it's like, they better fucking charge that family for, like, the furniture they destroyed. And it's like, because I don't want to fucking get a dock and pay, or, like, you know, have, like, the fucking company saying, well, our market's down because of costs. You mean the costs we incurred when you had to replace the furniture from the fucking brawl?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's, you know, even if it doesn't affect your pay, taking it out of that Christmas party.
Oh yeah, because Lord knows how they fucking splurge over there. That'll be a story for another day.
Oh.
Because, man, there is too many stories I can talk about work to fit into just 2 fucking podcasts. Are you kidding me? I got enough material for the rest of the year if we did nothing but, sir. I've been working there for 6 years. The stories I have, I'm just up my sleeve. But, so, yeah, that happened. So how was your work?
Well.
Top that, motherfucker. Let's see what you got.
I can't really top that right now, but...
Not at the moment, but wait until the end of the week. I'll have something.
I have seen some fights at Taco Bell when I first started working at the Staples location. It's right across from high school.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was pretty common, especially the closer it got towards the end of the year, for fights to break out in our parking lot. And
well, that's out in the parking lot. That's not your problem. You just calmly walk over to the door, click that little hand lock, and calmly walk back to your counter.
Well, you know, back then the whole big thing was when you wanted to challenge somebody to fight, they would be like, "Let's take it outside. Let's take it outside." And so they took it outside. And one time we had a big enough one that erupted that actual SWAT members came out and started beating kids with clubs.
Oh, God. It's like, I would have just, like, ran up and, like, grabbed, like, a fucking stick. Are we doing this? Can I join in?
I just wanted to give...
Just quick, deputize me so I can start beating ass.
I wanted to give them all chalupas. I would have gladly paid for the chalupas to give them because it was beautiful. All these rowdy fucking kids that would ruin my day every fucking day, getting beaten with nightsticks and pinned down with shields and arrested. It brought a tear to my eye, and I loved it.
It's a shame that this was like before the days when like cell phone cameras were so fucking common.
Yeah, back then cell phones were generally
blunt instruments used to bludgeon cougars when they attacked you in the wild.
Yeah, they looked more like walkie-talkies. Not as big, but they were still fairly large.
Oh, I am quite familiar with the evolution of the cell phone.
Yeah, and back then they didn't have cameras and internet and stuff like that. You had to pay by the minute for your phone calls. And
these little shits don't know how good they have it.
Yeah. Well, I had it good that
How
day.
will I Instagram? Motherfucker, you can't even page someone with this thing. You need to buy the pager separate.
Yeah, if you wanted to page somebody, you had to wear this thing called a beeper.
Oh yeah, like kids cannot even begin to wrap their heads around that shit anymore.
Yeah, and some of the really fancy beepers, you could put like 2 or 3 words with the number.
Like you didn't text someone, meet me out in the parking lot, bitch. We're gonna settle this. You just had to like send them a text or like a pager message that said "get some," and you had to abbreviate it to like SUM because it cost you by the letter.
Indeed. But, yeah, so, like, I was on the work program, so I had to go to school earlier. I went at 6 in the morning instead of 8, but I also got out by noon, and I would go to work immediately after lunch, and I would work until about 5 or 6 o'clock. And so when school would let out, all these kids would go rushing into there, and they were loud and messy, and whether they ordered food or not, they just like completely.
So, as a high school kid, you are already a grown-ass adult hating children for being children.
Yes.
The work program does help you mature fast. You'll start hating children while you still are. You will be very advanced for your age.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd bring like snacks and shit from school, and they'd leave all their trash and homework and detention slips all over the place, and clog all the toilets in the bathroom, and or draw swastikas and shit on the walls. So yeah, I fucking hated those kids, and
I love that even though they were of similar age to you, you still only refer to them as kids. It's like, God, what shows have I seen where like they have like people the same age as them? They're like, hey kid, you can't do that. It's like, motherfucker's the same age as you.
some of them were older.
Yeah, where did I see that in like the show? I think it was like some of the South Park like show episodes, like they refer to each other as like kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just like a slip up in the writing or if that's like something kids do now. It's like shit, I don't know.
Well, I know for me, like, I just felt more mature than them, and I didn't think of myself as a kid. When I think of kids, I tend to think of lower than high school.
I tend to think of them as like lower than subhuman. It's like they're not really humans yet. They're still like pupating. Then they go into their cocoon phase, and then eventually, like the metamorphosis happens, and they come out to become a fully grown dickhead.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so these particular subhumans, they acted like they were still in middle school and trashed the place up really good. And
So watching them get like their ass handed down to them by the man. It's like this is one of those few times where you can really say the man is holding you down and brutalizing you.
It was a good day. It was a good day.
Good day to be alive.
This was a nice change of pace.
Just like go home, like sleep well, wake up at the dawn and say, I am fully refreshed as a human being. I feel re-energized.
Yeah.
I still remember one time when I swung by your place over at Taco Bell, and this was somewhat recently, a couple of months ago, and I saw you leaning back against the drive-through window. And this was when it was like one of those colder days. And just the way that you were like just leaning back, so that your entire back was like pressed up against the drive-through window. So if someone drove up, all they would see would be like your back and like your butt, like right there by the window. And I couldn't help thinking, is like, why do I keep getting this mental image of like someone pissing you off at the drive-through, and then when they come up, you just drop trout, open the window, and take a giant steaming shit on them while their windows roll down, expecting their food. Because it just looked like you weren't just hoping that were happening, that you were fully intent on doing that at some point during your shift.
Well, on an interesting note, when I worked at the halfway house.
You shat on someone?
No, but you're bringing up my back against the glass. It reminds me of this. Whenever there were concerts, we would have a problem with all the clients, like building up what I would call a perv pile. And essentially, they're all trying to shove as many of their heads as they can in the window so they can look at the women in short skirts walking by. And I found this really frustrating and disrespectful. And so what I started doing is when they would set up the perf pile, I'd go outside and I'd put my back up against the window so the only thing they could see was my back.
I'm surprised you didn't just drop trow and just give them pressed ham. I'm surprised you didn't drop trout and like proactively press your bare ass against the glass from the inside, so that when they start pressing their face against the glass later, it's like, why does this smell like cheese?
Well, you see, these guys were from prison, so I ain't gonna show 'em my ass. All right.
Oh, silly me! I should have thought about this. Oh, Jesus. Next thing you know, they're following you around with the whole bird pile.
Exactly.
One thing I did want to mention also as well was one thing that bugs me, and how often do they come back to you guys about those user reviews, like the things on the back of the receipt where you're supposed to give a review?
Well, honestly, it really varies, but we're actually supposed to meet a minimum amount. I think we're supposed to get like 80 a pay period.
I mean, like, do they come back and say, you got a really good review, or like, you got a really bad review?
Yeah, actually, every review that we do get, it gets emailed to us, and just however many we get, when we get that email, we post it on there. Most of our reviews are actually pretty positive, thankfully, because it's a lot easier for people to want to get mad and complain than it is for people to want to be nice.
Oh, yeah. Like, when I was working at GameStop, that was something I fucking hated. It was always like, it's like, oh, it's like, someone was complaining. It's like, God, one thing I hated over at GameStop was that all the complaints I got, well, not all, a lot of the complaints I got were for shit that I had no control over.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever a lot of the complaints that I get are just me following the policies that.
Well, not even that. Like, I remember there was a time where I was working with this assistant manager. There was this one manager that we got where we knew it was going to be a bad time. These were the dark fucking days. Because this was a manager that, for as long as I'd worked for the company, since 2008, we'd heard rumor after rumor after rumor that this guy was the skeeviest of the skeevy. This was like, the worst of the worst manager. Working for him was like, would make you wish for the day you could work for the devil himself. Like, you would pine to be like George Jetson working for the slave driver Spacely Sprocket, or Mr. Spacely, as his name was. It's like literally any bad boss in media wasn't as bad as this jackass was. And of course, he got to be our manager for about a year and a half, 2 years. I don't remember exactly how long he was at the store that I worked at. Now, the previous interactions I had with him were very brief, and they were generally positive. I'd had like a good repertoire with him because he knew that I knew what I was talking about with games. And he respected that, unlike a lot of the other managers that didn't play games and they only knew it from a business sense. And they thought that knowing your product was the last fucking thing you ever had to worry about at all. He's like, just sell the product. I don't care what you have to tell little bastards, just make them buy it. Get their parents to buy it. Tell them it's made out of crack if you fucking have to. But once we started working for the guy, we realized that he was a piece of shit. He's the kind of person who, if he could find a way to get ahead by stabbing you in the back, he would do it. If he could find a way to get ahead without stabbing you in the back, he would wait until there was a way that he could inconvenience or outright hinder you while getting ahead instead, rather than just getting ahead on his own merit. And so he was going out of his way to make himself better at the cost of others. Which, fuck that noise, man. I mean, seriously, you're going to be playing that kind of shit? Really?
Yeah, I've had to work with a few individuals like that.
Well, the problem is the one employee he brought with him was this long-haired little fuckwad whose name I forget, and I really shouldn't say his name anyway. But he was a long-haired guy who didn't know shit about shit, and he literally was he was a fucking like constant liar. I forget the term for that. Like a habitual liar.
Perpetual liar.
Well, like lying perpetually. Yeah, he did do that. I think I think it's habitual, like out of habit. He did it out of habit. Like even when he didn't need to, and when you're trying to sell games and you're telling outright fucking lies to people, like they're gonna come back and they're gonna be pissed, and they're not gonna complain to him. They're gonna complain to you. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. That's just how it works.
You're the one behind the counter with the name badge.
It's like, yeah, and so like this piece of they always scheduled me to work with this piece of shit, and I swear to God, I kept getting bad fucking feedback from my reviews, and one thing that kept coming up was like the guy who did the transaction was fine, but that long-haired fucking sissy next to him was a piece of shit. I hate him. And what I kept getting back on my feedback was, we're going to have to write you up. I'm like, fucking why? You just read these complaints. It's not about me. It's like, oh yeah, but according to company policy, we have to go after you because they're under your transactions. It's not what they're complaining about. It's that they're complaining. I'm like, that's fucking retarded. The guy was just trying to cover the ass of his fucking lackey. The reason he liked the guy was because he was a lackey. He was a stooge. He was someone who was very stupid that he could easily control and manipulate to his advantage. Every good villain has to have a stooge. Every good Koopa needs to have a Goomba. And this guy was his fucking Goomba. And so like, I kept getting all these bad reviews, and they kept writing me up. I'm like, I'm sick of getting these fucking reviews. And so I started popping off to the guy, and he goes crying to his manager. And I told him, like, flat out, is like, look, I'm not putting up for your boy no more. Like, he's a piece of shit, and he's costing me. And, like, unless you're going to straight up tell me that I'm not going to be punished for his failings anymore, then I'm not going to put up with him. I'm going to badmouth him in front of customers because I'm sick of it. It's like, I'm not going to stick my neck out for this piece of shit. And what was worse is, like, he would be invasive. He would get into my customers' faces and tell them lies about shit, like while they're talking to me. It's like like I'm trying to sell Dead Island to someone. Like, oh yeah, Jason Voorhees is in the game. You know Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th movies? He's in the game. It's like, no, there's a dude who wears the hockey mask, but it's not Jason Voorhees because you can talk to him. It's not the same guy. And even if it was, if he's talking to you, it's not Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
I know from like the guy that there is like a secret confrontation you can get with the dude like wearing a hockey mask, but it's not the Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies. Because like I said, he wouldn't be fucking talking to you.
Yeah. Well, also just like having to pay for those royalties and stuff.
It's like, yeah, you could, it would probably be like, you know, Basin Voorhees or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think he had like a green hockey mask or something like that. Like, so it was like similar but legally distinct from. You get that kind of shit, like they'll do that in certain video games. But and like I forget some of the other lies. It was so many years ago, but like God, he was just
Frederick Grueller.
he was just such a fucking liar. Like sometimes I wanted to just fucking choke slam his little fucking punk ass into the ground in front of the customers, and they'd probably applaud me for doing it because man, they did not like this piece of shit. It's like people generally hate me just by looking at me. Like I don't even have to say two words to someone, but like for them to decide that they're just going to spend the rest of their waking moments making my life a living fucking hell in every way possible for them. But for some reason, this dude was such a piece of shit that he was a good distraction for me. Like people was like, I hate this guy, but this long-haired son of a bitch is, I hate him so much more. So in one way, he was actually a benefit.
But on paper.
Yeah, in practice, he was much more of a detriment than a benefit. But like, yeah, and I say that because in the funeral home business, since, like, you know, the customers are coming a lot more and they're spending a lot more money, they're not buying a $60 game, they're buying a $10,000 fucking funeral service. So what they have to say is a lot more fucking important. And it's not like you just get it on the back of the receipt. Like, the counselors are meant to follow up. You have your follow-up counselors. Now, they're the ones in charge of following up, like calling you up, asking, are you okay? Is there anything we can help you with? Did you get your death certificates? Did you get, like, everything? Was everything satisfactory? Is there anyone who can help you out? And the main reason to do that is to A, make sure that you leave a good impression so that they're likely to suggest your services to friends and family, and B, convince them to come back so you can sell them on pre-needs. Now, I'll describe what pre-needs are a bit later, and it's actually something that it sounds skeezy, but it's actually for your own benefit. And when you think about it, like it does make sense, but that's for another time. But so every quarter we get to have a meeting, like a town hall meeting, where essentially the head honchos get the reports back from corporate, and we get to be put on the chopping block and get to see where the axe falls. It's not necessarily anyone's going to lose their jobs, it's just a matter of who's going to get their ass chewed out very, very publicly. And God damn it, some of those are just so infuriating. For one thing, it's all, or most of it is fucking like corporate bullshit. What I mean by corporate bullshit, I mean like we're handing out this paper and I want you to write down 10 things that you can do to make this company better. And of course my instinct is just write down, hire all the corporate staff, kill the CEOs, burn his corpse, murder his family so that his seed cannot pestulate in the gene pool, take 50% of the stockholders and tell them if they want to keep their stocks, they have to murder the other 50% of the stockholders, put them all in a big room and put just enough knives for half of them and tell them that only half get to leave with their stocks. And that if they eat the dead, they get to take their stocks too. And stuff like beat the location managers within an inch of their life. You know, stuff like this, like really venting out, but no, you got to write down the corporate stuff, like, you know, that, and so like they'll always pick out like this list of shit that no one wrote down because no one's going to write down this bullshit. It's like stuff that they wrote down before. It's like, oh, here's a good one. Synergizing with your fellow employees. No one fucking wrote that. No one uses synergize. Unless you're a fucking CEO, you don't use synergize. The man, boots on the ground worker for a corporation knows that synergize is bullshit.
Yeah.
You might as well just say fucking farfanugan for all the fucking use and relevance it has to you. And it's like stuff like that is like, we're working to improve our market. And we need to better ourselves for the customer. And the thing is, they never address the problems. We get so many problems with the fucking counselors. Because the counselors and the planning funeral directors are the ones that actually decide what the family's going to be buying. The counselors are always trying to pitch them like the most expensive thing because they get paid on commission. They get paid like 10 or 15% of the total. So, for instance, if you sell a $10,000 service and you're getting 10% of that, that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
Or 15% of that, or whatever the fucking commission rates are. And of course, they get bonuses based on, like, you know, how many sales they get in a particular month or week or what have you. And they get to go on these big fucking corporate trips to like Disney World and fucking like Bourbon Street and the Las Vegas Strip and shit like that. All paid, of course. Meanwhile, like us part-time workers, we're the boots on the ground. We're the ones that have to deal with their bullshit. Like, for example, we get too many instances of these counselors going behind the funeral director's backs and like promising them stuff or suggesting stuff. Like, you know, why don't you go ahead and get this package? It comes with a limo. You can get a limo. Limo. And the problem is the families are so grief-stricken because, like, so a lot of the times they're walking in, like, right after their loved one just died. So they're not in the best state of mind. So when they hear a counselor going on and on about a fucking limo, they think they're going to get a limo. They don't realize that that's not free. You have to pay extra for it. So guess what? I'm out there parking cars, and the family comes up to me and says, "Where's our limo?" And I say, "What limo?" Because there was no limo on the schedule. There was no limo in the paperwork. There was no limo in the fucking plan. There is no fucking limo. But because they heard limo, it's like, no, we were told by your counselor that there was going to be a limo. Like, of course you're told by the fucking counselor, that short-sighted cocksucker. And they never tell us which counselor it is. Oh, we're never allowed to know that. God forbid we know who keeps fucking up. because then we might actually be able to correct the problem. And we can't be having that. And so now we got to go get a limo, and now the family's already mad because we didn't have the limo sitting there, and they think we're a bunch of fuck-ups. So then they start complaining about everything because now they're in even worse mood. It's like, it's not like they're in a bad mood or anything. It's not like one of their relatives died. And so, of course, all of this reflects badly on the follow-up, questionnaire, which is mandatory. Like, they always try to have them fill out the questionnaire. So, I shit you not, for like a whole year, we had this one district manager. I can't really say his name as much as I'd love to rat the fucker out. I think he was so much of a fuck-up they moved him up to corporate because people fail upwards in corporations. If you fuck up bad enough, you'll be running this company in no time at all. And for a year, he kept getting this feedback, and the shit that was coming out of his mouth, I wanted to burn this man alive. I didn't want to burn an effigy of him. I wanted the real thing. And it was literally, this is what we got. It's like we came back with the user reviews, and our average score came back at 98% on the funeral side. This is disgusting, appalling, unacceptable. On 98%. What kind of a business do you think we're running here? You think you can just walk in here and expect to do 98% of your job? It's like literally he was explaining to us that as far as he was concerned and as far as the corporation was concerned, anything less than 100 was grounds for destroying our market, for just shutting down all the funeral homes and just packing it up. Because there was no point, there was no way we could make this company profitable. Let me tell you something. When I first started working for this company back in 2012, our stocks were at $18 a share. Last I checked, they were almost at 40. So for them to feed me that fucking line, they can fuck right off and die. They can load all the fucking CEOs into a big bus and drive it off a fucking cliff and listen to them scream in agony as their legs get trapped under boulders and they burn to death in the fire. Just seriously, what the fuck kind of nonsense is that? A 98% is unacceptable, appalling, deplorable. Just, it disgusted them, the mere suggestion that that was good enough. Like, they wanted to just vomit. You could tell, you could just hear them going, as they were talking, because that's how much they were just sick into their fucking core.
Well, that's not as bad as the newsletter I once got from Taco Bell, but it deeply offended me. So, this is back when I'm still in high school, but the Taco Bell employees all got this newsletter from our corporate overlords, and it spends a good paragraph just talking about...
Was there like a picture of Sauron on the header? Just the eye of Sauron, we're always watching you. Like a little bell, like, right above the eye.
There might have been. I didn't check for it, but...
Go back, you may see that then.
But yeah, it's been a good paragraph, just like talking about all the improvements that we've made and how much all our numbers were up and how, like, we took this company from a 93% satisfactory rate to like a 96 and some fractional numbers. And, it seems like, you're starting off with a good positive thing, and then it follows up with, but we're not perfect, so we still have a long way to go. And I immediately think, well, very fuck you much.
Yeah, but like it's one thing to say like you went from like a 95 to like a 96.5, but to say that you're at 98%, which is just that's within the fucking margin of error, statistically.
Yeah, I realize that the margin of error is not like school where it's 70% and up, but still,
no, it's like margin of error is like about 3%. It's like 3 or 4%. For politics, it's generally 4%. For most like other things, it's about 3%.
Yeah, I was thinking like 5 to 10%. You know, if 95% of your customers are satisfied, that's pretty good. Yeah, we get about 800 customers a day at our building, so if we were doing 95%, uh, that would mean like 40 customers weren't 100% satisfied. And that's kind of a big number, and I can see where you would want to improve. But
You know, the only time they get to bitch is if like if you're below 70%.
yeah,
Make it like school. It's like if you're pulling a fucking
Yeah,
C, you're still passing. You're still got a passing grade. It's like once you start hitting the 60s, it's like all right, we need to start like pulling this plane up before we hit the ground. But
yeah,
like a 90 fucking 8, man, and just to be that fucking offended by it.
yeah.
It's like, and I'm thinking, and all I could think of at this point was A, how badly I wanted to murder this guy right then and there in front of my coworkers, and hold his head like it was the head of Medusa in front of like all of my other coworkers and watch them turn to stone.
Yeah, if schools are going to teach you that, like, 70 is like the bare minimum, then, that should, like,
I
translate.
tell you one thing, I would be a much happier person in general throughout my life if every time I got my grades back, I scored a 98 percentile.
No shit.
As opposed to like so long as I pass, I am a happy, happy boy. Which was how I looked at school and college. Especially college, because fuck that noise.
Right, paying for this bullshit?
I'm paying to get yelled at by some fucker who's sad because he doesn't have tenure. Go fuck yourself, sir.
Like me when I was in high school, I was a lot smarter than my grades would suggest. And part of the reason I can safely say this is I was sick of school by the time I was in high school. So I basically factored in the bare minimum amount of work I would need to pass, and just did that.
Oh, we just saw a thing on the internet where there's like a pie graph where it says like like what is like what I need to to like get a good grade, and like compared to like it's like can I pass this test, and just by just turning it in now and leaving the rest of the questions blank.
Yeah, that was my my thing in high school.
This is pain, and I would like it to end, please. I will tell you where the Allies are landing on the beaches if you stop hurting me, please. Thank you.
Speaking of the internet, we recently saw this thing on Common Awards that just had us busting a gut laughing, where it shows a photocopy machine covered in spaghetti with the quote, "What did you do all day?"
From your boss, and it says me, and it just shows like this picture of someone attempting to fax or photocopy very wet spaghetti.
So this had me thinking when I saw this. If you were going to just say, fuck it, to hell with the consequences, damn the torpedoes, and quit your job.
That's one fun way to do it.
What would be your spaghetti incident, sir?
I don't know. It depends on how unequivocally pissed off I am at the time. Because you did earlier suggest arson. So that's one option right there. But I'm not keen on going to jail. I'm far too pretty for that. But I don't know that because we have like photocopiers at all of our funeral homes, so there is no limit to the places I could do that at. And if I was properly motivated, I could literally go with like a giant fucking Tupperware container of spaghetti and equally just do that to every single fucking photocopier, including our main hub, which has more than one.
Nice.
And the fax machine, just really get it in the gears.
Now, for me, there are three things I would do. First would be, I would take an entire case of black beans and drop it in the thermalizer. Now, for those of you who don't work Taco Bell, for this to be relevant, we only make about 2 to 3 bags of black beans a day. That's literally all we need to make to do all the sales necessary for it, and it's not a product that we can store overnight. And a case has about 56 slaps of these things.
And
So,
don't just put it in the thermalizer, put it in the fryolators too.
well,
Just like anything that generates heat that you can stick these things into. Wedge as many in as possible.
Well, the deep fryer is the second point I would get to. I've always made a joke about getting fired for deep frying a roll of toilet paper, so I'm going to go ahead and take one of those big cheese wheels of toilet paper and throw that in the deep fryer.
Are you at least going to bread it first, or are you going to be a complete, like, uncultured swine?
I'm going to be an uncultured swine. And my final act of defiance is I'm going to pick up the pan of beef from the hotline and just dump it on the vegetables before dropping the pan on the floor and walking out. If it gets to the point that everything is just so bad that I say, damn the torpedoes and quit, I'm going to do those 3 things before I walk out that door.
Now, I really want to finish this thought, like, not to take away from that, but, God, just like those fucking user reviews, God, that pisses me off to no fucking end. Because it doesn't matter if you work at Taco Bell, doesn't matter if you work at GameStop, doesn't matter if you work at a funeral home, doesn't matter if you fucking work anywhere. So long as they have user reviews, you're never going to get a perfect score. I don't fucking care who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, is like at a funeral, it's really bad because people are already upset. They have a dead loved one. They're not in the best of moods. They aren't going to be happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you do. Now, they may be thankful after the fact, but that's after the fact.
Well, also, not only did they lose a loved one, but see, funerals are expensive.
Yeah, so they're not going to be happy about that. Inherently, they think you're taking advantage of them.
Yeah. And so...
It's like, essentially, you might as well be a mechanic in the middle of fucking nowhere, and when, like, their car breaks down, they ask how much it's going to be. You're just sitting there saying how much you got.
Yeah.
It's like, they're saying, how much to bury our loved one? It's like, well, how much is there in life insurance?
If you really loved one, you'd get this crusted velvet lining.
And the vaults. Don't forget the vaults, too. You don't want them.
It keeps the worms out for an extra 3 days.
Now, those vaults are pretty hardcore, I will say that. They don't fuck around with those things. But just like, so there's always going to be something to complain. I know people that can complain about everything and anything. So you make one little fuck up, and it doesn't even have to be you making a fuck up. It's something, like, they can literally say, like, they could literally give you a 98 on a fucking review because it rained that day. How the fuck am I supposed to stop that?
Yeah, or like, they order a flower and...
The flower shop fucks it up, which they do constantly. I fucking hate flowers, I fucking hate flower shops.
Oh, I was just thinking, like, a pure act of nature could screw something up.
Oh, like if they wilt or something?
Well, like, let's say they order a certain kind of purple flower and it's not quite the shade they're expecting just because, not all flowers are a
well, for one thing, like, whenever, like, a flower arrangement's fucked up, it doesn't matter who sent it or what fucking flower shop was involved. They always blame us at the funeral home. It's like, does it fucking look like we got a flower shop in this building? No, the only flowers we got are the fake ones. And what you see is what you get. If you bought it, you fucking know what you have. When it comes to flower shops, you're essentially going online, you see a demo picture of what this thing may or may not look like when they get it.
Yeah.
It can look completely different.
Yeah, like, the picture, they might be in full bloom and, because of harvesting times, it may not have quite reached that peak.
Or it could have peaked too early and now, like, everything's wilted and dying. There was this one flower company that our funeral home had to deal with, and I wanted to straight up throttle all of the funeral directors that, like, had people getting their flowers from there. Because the flower company was called Artistic. I like to call them Autistic because they could not fucking figure out how to make flowers. Every fucking flower arrangement we got from them was bullshit. I mean, you're talking about when you get a flower arrangement. Generally, they're put in these styrofoam green blocks, and generally it's a green block, and they just stab the fucking stems of the flowers in there to make the arrangement.
Yeah.
For some reason, these jackasses thought it'd be a good idea to buy old, out-of-date styrofoam because they thought that they could save a nickel and dime here by getting the ones that were well past due. Guess what happens to the styrofoam when it gets old?
It starts to degrade.
Oh, yeah. And they also had a habit of, they thought if they put a shitload of water in the foam, it would help keep the flowers fresher. You ever see what happens when you pour water on cotton candy? Imagine that, except on fast forward. I can't run to the graveside with these flowers fast enough to get them there before this thing disintegrates like my hopes and dreams. And as if that wasn't bad enough, like any type of vibration, like say you looking at the fucking things, makes them fall apart. And then there's also the fact of, like, a lot of the times, as if that wasn't bad enough, the flowers we got from them that were already wilted when we got them. And then we get people accusing us of, like, you've had these for days and you didn't tell us. It's like, this thing came in like 5 minutes ago. You literally saw me go into the back when you heard the fucking, like, alarm thing that goes off whenever someone opens the back flower door. You saw me go back there. You saw me come out with these things. You think I was keeping them back there in a fucking box? And I got some midget hiding in the back with like a little fucking button to hit to, like, you know, lure me to the back so I can get these fucking, like, dead-ass flowers for you? It doesn't fucking work that way. I don't know what kind of funeral homes you've been to in the past, but we don't run our shit like that. What do you think this is, Phantasm? You think we got the tall man back there fucking up your funeral for you? God, what I wouldn't give to get some of those fucking flying silver balls to, like, throw at these motherfuckers. I would give my left nut for just an unlimited supply of sentinels I could just throw at people that piss me off at work. I will channel the dead soul of Angus Grimm. But going back to the complaint thing, I mean, shit. I know people. Mutual friends of ours, not that mutual friends, but other people that we both know who have told me to my face that as a rule, they never give a perfect score on any user reviews. And I've heard reasons saying like, well, there's always room for improvement. Go fuck yourself. Or even worse, nobody's perfect, so it wouldn't be right and honest of me to give them a perfect score. Fuck you. Fuck you and everyone that looks like you. Seriously.
Yeah, when people, like, put that kind of policy behind reviews, first off, fuck you. Fuck you very much.
Seriously.
Go sit on a pineapple and swallow a jellyfish. If you go somewhere, you receive a service, you don't have any problems, and the person is friendly, give them the proper fucking score. Like, when I go on eBay and I order a product and I get it 4 days later, products is advertised, I don't get to have any expectations other than I get my product and I get my product in the condition it's in.
I didn't get a warm handshake from the seller even though he lives like 9 states away.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to expect this guy to go above and beyond the call of duty. I'm expecting him to do the duty. And if they did the duty, then you pick up some papers and you clean up the duty because duty is gross. But no,
I thought you were going to go there.
But seriously, you know, if they do what they're supposed to, that's as high as an expectation as you get to go with. That is a 5-star rating. Sorry. If they go above and beyond, you add that to your report after giving them the perfect score. You say, and they did this and this and this.
You don't say, like, you know, like, I got what I paid for, 3 out of 5 stars, average.
Yeah.
Because he did an average job.
That's not how those reviews are meant to work.
Now, like, for something like on there, but like that is like, that's like a personal thing on like eBay and shit. When it comes to companies, like, companies are fucking savages about this. They're fucking cavemen. It has to be perfect or it can't be. It's like it is either night or it is day. There is no in between. It is either a perfect grade or we have to like start cannibalizing ourselves to like, save this company from going down the toilet. And of course, they're not going to dock their own pay. They're going to like fucking stick it to us.
Yeah, exactly. Any gray area you put on a review, I have to go to the back and listen to my manager give me a 30-minute speech over customer service and, all the crap that we could be doing. And I could have done my job to a T, but because you decide to put some smidge on there, being pretentious, you are fucking with my day. Now, if I legitimately do something wrong, fine, but don't be pretentious.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that South Park episode about Yelpers.
Yeah.
It really does remind me of that. If you haven't seen that episode of South Park, fucking watch it. Especially the bit where, like, they have, what was it, Kyle's dad? What is his name?
I forget, but yeah, he's talking about how...
It's either Kyle's dad or Stan's dad, who I know who's Randy, because he's in most of the episodes. But, like, one of them is, like, one of the big food gurus, or, like, one of the big Yelpers that think they're, like, some sort of, like, fucking, like, 5-star restaurant, like, the...
Yeah, he goes into great detail about how magnificent the food was. And
but he says, like, there was, like...
But there was trouble parking. Yeah.
Well, no, he says something to the effect of, like, but as I was walking in, I saw, like, a fruit stand down the block, and, like, the smell from it was, like, vaguely unpleasant, so I gave it a 2 out of 5-star rating. If I got something back, I will find you, and I will murder you in front of your family. And I will do it with a smile. But I think that's enough anger for one episode.
Yeah, you actually got some anger out of me today, and that's pretty rare. I'm usually a calm individual.
But God, that shit gets under my skin. God, fuck those people. If you're one of those people, seriously, unfuck yourself, okay? Do it. Now. Seriously. But we will come back with more career tales, because there's always going to be more. Like I said, like, the fucking fight that broke out, that was this fucking week. I didn't even have to dig that far back for that shit. There is so much more I have up my sleeve. But that'll have to be for another time. We're well past the hour mark, so in the meantime, like, comment, subscribe. You know what? You got any shit stories from your job? Post them in the comments. Yes. You think your job's worse than ours? I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Ventilation. It's not just for farts anymore.
So see you next time.
Eat fresh fruit.